The controller you see right here is not for PlayStation, it's for the Nintendo Switch, but it now works on PlayStation thanks to this, the Brook Wingman XE2. Thanks to a recent firmware update and people have been testing it online, this Switch controller now also works on the PlayStation version of the game. When I bought this controller, it was limited edition. It cost me like $300 just for the controller. It goes for way more online now. I bought it for this game, Hatsune Miku Project Diva Mega Mix, and it was available on Switch and PlayStation at the time. It's now also available on Steam. They made this controller to be as close as possible to the arcade experience, and that is what people like me spend most of my money trying to get as close to that arcade experience as possible, which you can still get in Japanese arcades, music games, especially music games, crane games, pretty photo booths where you take pictures. Arcades are still a thing in Japan. Now, like I say, this is the Switch version, and I don't have the PlayStation one, so I can't tell you whether the PlayStation one works on a Switch. But if you bought the Switch edition, you can use the Brook Wingman XE2 to work on a PlayStation. Now, I tested it on PS5, but it's actually a PS4 game. Now, full disclaimer, this product was actually sent to me by Brook for the purposes of making a different video. I actually got this product for testing on this, the Razer Kitsune, because this is a PS5 only controller. This adapter actually makes it work on PS4, so it's really useful for that. But as an added bonus, it does also work with converting this Switch controller to work on a PlayStation. So they didn't obviously send me a new one just to test this, they just sent me a message on Twitter. They're like, hey, would you like to do this test? And I was like, well, it doesn't cost me anything to do it. So here, I've tested it. It works from the Switch version of this controller. It does work on PlayStation. All the buttons are correct. All of these sliding things work fine. I didn't have to make any changes to the settings. It's just default triangle, square, cross, circle, which I believe is the correct layout for the arcade version of the game. I didn't even upgrade the firmware. I think I upgraded the firmware when I tested the Razer Kitsune, so it seems to already be up to date, but if yours isn't up to date, make sure you download the firmware update from the official Brook website. I found that the touch slider stuff all worked fine. You could do quick swipe, you could also do the long swooping swipes. All of that worked just fine. D-pad was fine. LR button. Along the top you have all the buttons I think that you would need. You've got the home button, which works just fine for the home button on a PlayStation controller. The plus button is set to your standard options button. You also have these analog sticks here. I'm not trying to say that you should buy this controller, because the truth is, you probably can't. This is a video for people who already own this controller, or maybe if they're looking at getting a pre-owned version and they can only find the Switch version because maybe the PlayStation version is too expensive, or maybe it's in higher demand or whatever. The whole thing is that they sent me a message and they said, can you test it? And I said, sure, why not? It doesn't cost me anything. So, the Brook Wingman XE2. It does work. I didn't have to make any changes in the settings, didn't notice any latency or lag or anything weird like that. Personally, I don't actually have much use for it because I have the Steam version of the game, but I suppose if I were in a situation where, I don't know, I was running a party and I only had a PlayStation set up, I didn't want to have a PC set up, it means that I can use this controller on the PlayStation version of the game. So I do like having that flexibility, and again, if you can only find like a Switch version online secondhand that you're trying to buy, you can rest assured knowing that you can also use it on a PlayStation just with this adapter. And this adapter goes for $45. Personally, I think for what it accomplishes, it's well worth the money. If you do want to see more about what this converter can do, check out the review that I made for this. It's the Razer Kitsune. Brook make a ton of really useful accessories which basically save the fighting game community. Without companies like Brook, I mean, there are other companies who make adapters, but without companies like Brook, it would just be so much harder to run tournaments and that sort of thing. Anyway, I just love the fact that we can avoid having to just throw out entire $300 limited edition controllers because I need the PlayStation version of the controller. You feel really powerful when you can get these inexpensive adapters. Listen, that's all for this video. Make sure you subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already, and check out this video next if you'd like to hear more about this controller, because it is so much fun using a giant arcade controller like this for a game like Project Diva Mega Mix. Anyway, that's all. I've been NihongoGamer. I'll see you real soon.